Let's go back east and a little bit north to Rocky Top, Knoxville, Tennessee, where expectations are high with the Tennessee Volunteers.
Absolutely.
They've got the arrival of Nico at quarterback. The position is now his, and this guy has an arm. He can sling it. We've talked about Joe Milton's arm, but this guy in Josh Heupel's system has a chance to do some really big things. He's got his top receiver, Brew McCoy, who was injured so much last year, is finally healthy. Squirrel White is back in the mix at receiver. The offensive line, though, that was a little bit of a problem last year. But they did do some upgrading, some transfers. When you look at this Tennessee offense, I know we're talking a lot about Nico. Anything else stand out to you?
Well, obviously the very first thing I wrote down in my notes as I was doing research was just Nico in big letters. It covers about 4 lines. Cause I mean, that's the linchpin to the whole thing. Truthfully, outside of that, as you said, I think the big question is, what's that O-line going to look like? Yes, they've taken some measures, but those don't always pan out. You got to get them in the system, especially this kind of system. I mean, this is an offensive lineman learning how to run the Indy 500 every week from whistle to whistle till the game's over. That's a learning curve for an O lineman. So that's one of the big questions. What's that pass protection going to look like for Nico? But I tell you, looking into Brew McCoy, because one of your concerns is always what is a player, what's an athlete going to look like coming back from an injury, especially a season-ending injury. And my favorite quote that I found about him was in an after-practice press availability with the coaching staff. And I believe the offensive coordinator of Tennessee is Joe Hazel. It's H-L. There's an L in there somewhere that I'm missing, but I think it's Hazel. He was asked, what does Brew McCoy look like? And this is just 3 or 4 days into camp. And his exact quote was, he looks absolutely insane. You won't believe what he looks like. That feels good. If you've got that kind of activity and movement at the wide receiver position, and you've got Nico's arm that can get it to him, as long as the upside is an offense like this, even though they did focus more on the run last year, and I don't think that'll go away, at least their plan, I would assume, is not to go completely away from that. Even if the offensive line doesn't mesh as much as you would want them to begin with, this is such a fast-paced offense. It's so hard for D linemen. You can survive games where you're just serviceable as an offensive line. So that could definitely be a help with that learning curve of the O-line. But when you've got people talking about Brew McCoy as being just absolutely insane, looking better than he ever has, I know it's during camp, but still, that's even bigger hyperbole than you're used to in those press availabilities. To me, that's a very positive thing for this Tennessee offense.
On the defensive side of the ball, Tennessee is returning quite a bit. They set a school record last year, I think, at 36 sacks. Out of the last 3 seasons, 2 of the seasons, they've had 100-plus TFLs. So the defense is really gelling. They've got a lot coming back, but the weakness seems to be in the secondary. And with the high-powered offenses in the SEC and the quarterbacks that we've already talked about, that could leave Tennessee susceptible to giving up some big plays.
Absolutely. If I'm a Tennessee fan, that's the part that scares me to death. I don't think you have to worry as much as about being outrun, being, looking like burnt toast, as they say, as much as people not being in the right place at the right time, not knowing the scheme. I think that's going to be a bigger concern for that secondary, and kind of learning the game. But one of the enormous upsides for this defense is James Pierce Jr. already projected to be the number one in the early mock drafts, already projected to be the number one overall draft pick. Overall draft pick going in the NFL next year. He is an edge rusher that just is a beast. And when you've got somebody like that that can disrupt a backfield, that helps with your secondary. That can cover a multitude of sins, as they say. So I think that's a definite positive for this defense.
Let's take a look at the Volunteers' schedule heading into this season. They'll start off with Chattanooga, then they've got the Wolfpack from North Carolina State, Kent State, that big game. Then they travel to Oklahoma. They get a week off after that. They go to Fayetteville. Then they've got Florida, which who knows what Florida is going to be like this year.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Then they've got Alabama coming to Knoxville, a week off. Then they've got Kentucky at home. We'll talk a little bit more about Kentucky later in another episode, particularly with the recent vacating of wins and 2 years probation. Mississippi State, you talked about Jeff Libby earlier, will be coming to Knoxville. Huge matchup with Georgia after that. Then they get UTEP, which is no slouch. And then they'll finish off by going to Nash Vegas to face the Vanderbilt Commodores. So that's the
which is
schedule.
No slap. Oh, never mind. UTEP, is that where Scotty Waldron went? Am I saying the right Texas school?
I just saw a video of Scotty Walden.
I'm almost positive because I'm excited to watch that game just because he's going to be and what his take all mentality coming into a game where there's obviously nothing to lose. Yes, the University of Texas El Paso Miners, Scotty Walden. So
he will have them fired up.
That's exactly right. It will not be a boring first quarter, even if they get beat 63-10. It will not be a boring first quarter.
Not at all. Not at all.